My name's Kimmy Murray, and I'm 53 years old, and I'm homeless. I'm vision impaired and disabled. Me and my husband alone have put in hours to get help from different agencies, churches, you name it. We're doing the footwork. We have an income.
In Portland today, tents line entire blocks where apartments once stood. A city once praised for progress now faces a collapse that few dare to acknowledge. And the thumbnail you clicked, Urban Decay, Portland 2025, wasn't exaggeration. What you saw there is the reality unfolding right now. This isn't just Portland's problem. It's a preview of what could happen in cities across America. Why is America pretending this collapse isn't happening? Think of people spending the night on a cold footpath, with nothing but a thin sheet of cardboard between them and the street. Imagine trying to rest while cars rush past, without shelter, without comfort, without safety. These are the scenes that define Portland's crisis today. How did a place known for creativity and culture reach this point so fast? And what happens next if other cities follow the same path? Why Portland's streets are filled with struggles, housing, health, and the fentanyl crisis. Portland's collapse isn't just about empty buildings, it's about people. Every tent, every cardboard bed on the sidewalk tells a story of survival in a city under pressure. Rent has climbed so high that families are forced to choose between food, medicine, or keeping a roof. And when they can't, the street becomes the only option. Picture a father working 2 jobs, still unable to cover rising rent, watching his family lose their apartment despite all his effort. Mental health challenges add another layer. Support systems are stretched thin, and waiting lists for treatment can last months. Imagine someone struggling with severe anxiety, reaching out for help, but never getting an appointment. Without care, stability slips away, and the sidewalk becomes the fallback. Then there's fentanyl, a synthetic drug that has swept across America. It's cheap, powerful, and dangerously addictive. In Portland, it has trapped thousands in cycles of instability. Think of a construction worker who once had steady pay, now living under a bridge after losing everything to addiction. These aren't distant tragedies. They're the daily reality shaping the city's streets. Encampments grow not because people want them, but because affordable housing is scarce and shelters are full. For many, a thin sheet of cardboard is the only barrier between them and the cold pavement. Families spend nights under open skies, workers sleep beside shuttered storefronts, and entire blocks transform into ghost zones. So the questions become sharper. How did a city of progress collapse so fast? Why is America turning away from its own streets? And what happens when every city faces the same storm? Portland's struggle is not isolated. Rising rents, untreated health challenges, and the spread of fentanyl are reshaping urban life across the nation. If this collapse can happen here, in a city once praised for creativity and culture, what stops it from happening everywhere? The consequences aren't abstract. They're economic. Businesses closing, jobs disappearing. They're social. Families fractured, communities destabilized. They're cultural. Cities losing the very identity that once defined them. Stay with me, because the deeper we go, the more urgent the truth becomes. Portland's collapse is not just about today, it's about the future of urban America, and whether our cities can survive the pressures tearing them apart. Portland is not alone. How America's biggest cities are showing the same warning signs. Portland's collapse is not just a local crisis. It's a mirror reflecting what could happen across the United States. When you look closely, the struggles here are the same struggles appearing in other cities, only at different scales. Take San Francisco. Rising rents, visible encampments, and the fentanyl epidemic have reshaped entire neighborhoods. Families who once thrived in the Bay Area now face the same impossible choices as those in Portland. Pay rent or pay for survival. The streets tell a story of a city under pressure, just like Portland's. Seattle shows another side of the same storm. Tent encampments have grown along highways and in public parks. Mental health resources are stretched thin, leaving people waiting months for treatment. The result? More individuals sleeping outdoors, more communities struggling to hold together. Even New York, America's largest city, is not immune. Shelters are overflowing, housing costs are at historic highs, and addiction challenges continue to rise. Behind the bright lights of Times Square, there are stories of workers who lost jobs and now spend nights in subway stations or on sidewalks. These examples reveal a pattern. Portland is not alone. It is part of a national wave of urban decay driven by three forces: unaffordable housing, untreated health struggles, and the spread of fentanyl. Each city shows the same warning signs, and together they paint a picture of what America's future could look like if these issues remain unaddressed. So the sharper questions must be asked. How did cities celebrated for progress collapse so quickly? Why is America turning away from its own streets, pretending these struggles are invisible? And what happens when every city faces the same storm at once? The consequences are already visible. Economically, businesses close and jobs disappear. Socially, families fracture and communities weaken. Culturally, cities lose the identity that once defined them: the art, the innovation, the sense of pride. If Portland's collapse spreads, the impact will not stop at city borders. It will ripple across the nation, affecting everyone. Imagine the future if nothing changes. Sidewalks lined with tents in every downtown, families sleeping in cars outside every suburb, and addiction crises overwhelming health systems coast to coast. That is the trajectory Portland warns us about. Stay with me, because the deeper we go, the more urgent the truth becomes. Portland's collapse is not just about one city. It's about whether America's urban centers can survive the pressures tearing them apart. And what happens next will shape the nation's economy, society, and culture for years to come. Portland's collapse through human eyes. What it means for all of us. Portland's story is not about blame. It's about people, ordinary lives caught in extraordinary struggles. When we talk about collapse, we're not pointing fingers at governments or nations. We're showing the human reality of what happens when housing, health, and addiction pressures collide. Walk through downtown, and you'll see the economic side of this crisis. Businesses close, jobs vanish, streets grow quiet. Imagine a shopkeeper locking the doors for the last time, standing in front of a store that once buzzed with customers but now sits empty. That's not just economics, it's a life's work disappearing. Then there's the social side. Families fracture under the weight of rising costs and limited support. Picture a child sitting under a streetlight, trying to finish homework because there's no home to return to. That's not just instability, it's a childhood shaped by survival. Culture fades too. Cities lose the energy that once defined them. Think of a music venue that used to pulse with sound, now silent, its stage gathering dust. That's not just decline, it's the loss of identity, the fading of pride. These aren't abstract consequences. They're lived experiences, And Portland is showing us what happens when rent climbs beyond reach, when mental health care is delayed for months, and when fentanyl spreads faster than recovery resources can respond. So the questions must grow sharper. How did a city once celebrated for progress reach this point so fast? Why is America turning away from its own streets, treating these struggles as invisible when they're happening in plain sight? And what happens when every city faces the same storm, while the nation keeps looking away? Portland's warning is clear. San Francisco, Seattle, New York, each shows similar signs: rising rents, overflowing shelters, addiction crises, empty storefronts. Together, they reveal a pattern that could reshape urban life across the country. And time is running out. If these pressures continue, sidewalks lined with tents will become the new normal. Families will spend nights in cars across suburbs. Communities will fracture under the weight of housing, health, and addiction crises. The collapse of one city is not just a local tragedy. It's a signal, a warning, a story that tells us what could happen everywhere if we don't act. Stay with me, because the final chapters of this story will show not only the depth of Portland's struggle, but also the choices America must make. The survival of many cities depends on whether we act now, before it's too late. Real voices. Lives behind Portland's collapse. Portland's collapse is not just statistics or empty streets. It's people, each with a story that deserves to be heard. In this final chapter, we bring those voices forward. Meet Stephanie, a woman living on Portland streets while battling fentanyl addiction. Her interview shows the raw reality of survival, counting down the days of her pregnancy while struggling with the grip of addiction. You can watch her story here.
Have some days like tough.
Stephanie Gomez counts the days.
9 months.
She's homeless and pregnant with her 5th child. This one, unplanned.
I'm getting later and I'm slowing down and I have to keep us safe. And that's just the biggest part, is just like keeping us safe and out of harm's way.
Stephanie is also addicted to fentanyl.
Worried about it. It seems like a lot of people that have delivered with fentanyl seem to be okay. Their kids seem to be okay.
Research shows fentanyl can have devastating impacts on babies exposed to the drug during pregnancy. For Stephanie, it's been 1 year living on these streets, she says.
I was actually married and had kids, and I've been a stay-at-home mom, and so I've always had a place to live. In Portland? In Portland.
Another documentary, Portland in Crisis, Lives Lost to Fentanyl and Homelessness, captures families and workers who once had stability, but now face nights on sidewalks and bridges. Their voices remind us that homelessness is not a choice, but a consequence of pressures too heavy to bear. Watch here in Go. Inside 24 hours of Portland's homeless crisis, journalists followed people across the city for a single day. They documented mothers searching for shelter, workers sleeping outdoors, and communities trying to hold together. See the full coverage here.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I've been in this shelter from the beginning, when it first opened. I'm 60 years old. I'm the oldest one in here.
There we go. I don't know if the city told them to move or what, but they're definitely not here, so we're cleaning up the mess. And make the neighbors happy too. We need a shovel guy.
I want to say over 1,000 meals a day. Me personally, I've been through homelessness before.
She come around and Mom, I love you. You're my best friend. It just makes me so much better about my day. I'm Tiana. I'm 26 years old.
And in the faces of Portland's fentanyl state of emergency, Families share how addiction has torn apart relationships, leaving loved ones on the streets. One mother describes finding her daughter homeless and addicted, yet still trying to keep a connection. These are not distant tragedies. They are voices from Portland's sidewalks, bridges, and shelters. Each interview is a reminder that collapse is not about buildings, it's about people. The survival of America's cities depends on whether we listen to these voices, acknowledge their struggles, and act before the same stories repeat everywhere. The shocking truth: Portland's collapse is America's wake-up call. This is the moment where the story turns from observation to shock. Because what Portland is showing us is not just decline, it's a preview of a future that could arrive faster than anyone expects. Look at the streets. Tents lined up like rows of forgotten homes, families sleeping in cars, children doing homework under streetlights, workers curled up on cardboard after losing everything. These are not isolated images. They are signals of a system under strain, a society at risk of breaking. The shock is not just in what you see, it's in what it means. Economically, collapse spreads like a chain reaction. A shopkeeper locks the doors for the last time. A restaurant closes, leaving workers jobless. Downtown's empty, and the heartbeat of a city slows. Multiply that across America, and the economic cost becomes staggering. Socially, the damage cuts deeper. A child grows up without a stable home. A mother spends nights awake, guarding her family on the sidewalk. Communities lose their sense of safety, and trust begins to erode. Multiply that across America, and the social fabric begins to tear. Culturally, the silence is haunting. Music venues once alive with sound now stand dark. Art spaces close. Pride fades. Cities lose the identity that once defined them. Multiply that across America, and the cultural soul of urban life begins to vanish. So here's the shocking truth. Portland is not just a city in crisis. It is a warning sign flashing for the entire nation. And the questions must escalate. How did a city of progress collapse so fast? Why is America turning away from its own streets, pretending these struggles are invisible? What happens when every city faces the same storm? And what happens if we keep looking away? The urgency is real. Time is running out. If these pressures continue unchecked, sidewalks lined with tents will become the new normal. Families will spend nights in cars across suburbs. Addiction crises will overwhelm health systems coast to coast. The collapse of one city is not just a local tragedy, it is a wake-up call, a signal that the survival of many cities depends on whether we act now, before it's too late. Portland's story is shocking because it forces us to confront what we'd rather ignore. But ignoring it won't make it disappear. Awareness is the first step. Action is the only way forward. Stay with me, because the final message is clear. Portland's collapse is not about one city. It's about all of us. And the choices we make today will decide whether America's cities survive tomorrow. The last word. Why Portland's story must not be ignored. We've walked through Portland's streets together. We've seen the tents, the cardboard beds, the families in cars, the workers who lost everything, and the silence of once vibrant neighborhoods. This is not just a city's collapse. It's a human story that demands attention. The final takeaway is simple but shocking. Portland is a warning, and ignoring it means risking the same fate everywhere. Think of the shopkeeper who closed his store after decades of work. Think of the mother who stays awake all night to keep her children safe on the sidewalk. Think of the young man who once had a steady job, now trapped by fentanyl and sleeping under a bridge. These are not statistics, they are lives. And here's the truth. If we look away, these stories will multiply. More families will lose homes. More workers will lose stability. More communities will lose their identity. So the questions we leave you with are not just about Portland. They are about all of us. What happens when every city faces the same storm? What happens if America keeps turning away from its own streets? And what happens if we wait too long to act? The urgency is real. Time is running out. The collapse of one city is not just a tragedy, it's a wake-up call. This is where the story ends for now, but it's also where your role begins. Share these voices. Talk about what you've seen. Refuse to let these struggles remain invisible. Because awareness is the first step, and action is the only way forward. Portland's collapse is not about one city. It's about the future of urban America. And whether our cities survive tomorrow depends on what we choose to do today. If you found this video powerful, don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell icon so you never miss the next chapter. Because the story of Portland is only the beginning, and the upcoming videos will reveal even more shocking truths. Stay tuned and be part of this journey.